Bishop Green, I wonder if you can help us with the following scripture from Matthew 24. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended and betray one another, and many will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, and because of lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Here, verse 13, Matthew 24. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. If these terrible things are being foretold by Jesus, how do we, if we have the privilege to walk through any aspect of them, how do we endure unto the end?
We endure by staying connected to Him. You know, he is the beginning and the end. He's the one who's passed through all of these experiences faithfully, and we will only be able to endure with His endurance. I mean, the fruit of the Spirit has to come to shape the character of our lives. We do that, I think, we stay connected to Him by staying close to His people, by staying on His mission, by remaining not just in prayer and communion with Him, which of course is right at the heart of it. I mean, I have to have this kind of lively, living conversation with God, but that's not enough. I have to do that in communion with the people He calls His own and on the mission He set out for us. So I think some of that is prosaic. It looks like showing up at church. It looks like making sure that I'm right with my neighbors, that my sins are confessed and forgiven, that I am caring for the least of these whenever I notice it and praying to notice it more. I think some of this is you get to that end well by living in this moment before the end as faithfully as you can.
So these big picture prophecy things, and nations will rise up and all the rest of it, in many ways the answer is to be faithful to the things we know.
Absolutely.
To do the Jesus stuff each and every day. Why is that so hard?
It's hard because it's simple and because we have an enemy that's distracting us, because our humanity is not yet healed. I mean, part of what we're naming when we name ourselves as sinners is that our humanity is not whole. The integrity isn't there. We're sick. I mean, I think we often think of sin as, again, moral transgression, but it's more helpful, I think, to start with thinking of sin as a sickness that's in us, that eats away at us, so that we're never really ourselves. You know what it's like when you're around someone who's very ill,
Sure.
and they're not themselves. I think sin does that to us. And so it's hard, it's actually very, very hard under those conditions to be present, to just do what needs to be done. And that's what requires, that's what faithfulness requires. If we're going to endure to the end, we just have to be faithful in this moment and the next moment when it comes. And that is possible. It's hard if I let myself get carried away by distractions. It's interesting, Jesus, He makes this point about the seed that doesn't grow up into full fruitfulness. It's often because it gets choked out by the cares of life. And you know, so much these prophecies are about the work of evil in the world. But very often it's not catastrophic suffering that distracts me from Jesus. It's just the cares of life, right? It's just I'm too caught up in the mundane to recognize what really matters here. And I think some of this is about having the kind of relationship with God, having the kind of the wise voices in your life who can remind you, no, this is what really matters. This is what really matters. So
that enduring unto the end, that good seasons and bad seasons, difficult seasons and easy seasons, for those of us that may feel we're wildly off the mark, who have been distracted by the cares of this world, who've not felt that we've endured, but it's not the end. How do we recover that narrow path, that straight way? Because there is a blessing, there is a salvation at the end, the saving of our souls.
Yes. I think some of it is keeping our attention on Jesus. You know, in the language of Hebrews, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. We kind of have to keep our eye on Him. So imagine, I sometimes do this, my father did it with me, I sometimes do it with my boys. trying to navigate through a difficult situation, I'll say to them, look at me. Look at me. Not because I want them to lose sight of everything else, but because I know what they need in this moment is the courage that I can lend to them by what I let them see on my face. Like, look at me. You're okay. You're okay, and you know you're okay because I'm okay, and I'm confident. So looking unto Jesus is that. I mean, it's daily, again and again, returning to his image and recognizing no matter what's going on in the world. And we shouldn't fool ourselves. I mean, there is so much that's wrong in the world. But I think one of the marks that we're not going to endure is that we're eaten up with anxiety about what's going wrong. So I think just in terms of kind of taking our own temperature, like, what do I feel most deeply? What's processing in me? Is it anxiety about what's happening in the world? And is that clouding or crowding out my confidence that Jesus is at the end already? And he's calling to me from that end, as well as walking with me along toward it. I need that deep sense of peace that should come, the peace that passes understanding. Not because I'm denying how broken the world is or how awful things are playing out, again, at the geopolitical scale or the personal scale. But I can't let my feelings be a reflection of all of that. That's what it means to be looking at the storm, right? Peter has to walk on the water by looking at Jesus, not by looking at the storm. And unfortunately, I think too many of us, we have our eyes on too many other things. And tragically, many prophets and ministers draw our attention to those things. Their ministry becomes about their commentary on those happenings rather than turning our attention to Jesus. Real ministry, real prophecy, real Bible teaching doesn't tell me what to think about all these things that are happening around me. It tells me how to see Jesus, how to keep my eye on Jesus. And then suddenly all these things look different. You know, we used to sing that song, right? That turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face. And the things of the world we sang grow strangely dim, but not all of them get dim, but they all look different in the light of his face.